We said that Carl Jung made problems a measure of gauging the psychic development of the individual. In childhood, consciousness remains undeveloped and thus the child cannot be affected by personal issues. Consciousness makes us aware of reality, of problems, and since there is no consciousness in infancy, problems cannot enter the psychic realm of the child. In puberty, he constructs a robust ego and begins to feel more so a separate being from his caregivers. Inner tension arises, but to some extent, cause major issues are still handled by them. Even during puberty, consciousness remains partially developed. Linking this back to my introduction of this series, I mentioned that the more conscious we are, the more of the world we could process, thus result in an overwhelming deal of problems. In this video, I elaborate on the period of youth and midlife, limited roughly between 18 and 40 years of age. This is where consciousness is to flourish at its fullest, to welcome most of life, to prepare the person for his journey. With its numerous demands, the dawn of adulthood puts an end to the soothing bubble of childhood. This is the period of youth where the person is subject to be faced by the most problems, contrasted with prior and subsequent phases. In this period, the majority of psychological tension is due to the use of fantasy, recurrent attempts to escape reality, namely false assumptions. Example, placing at stake loads of money in an uncertain business endeavor, assuming success without an elaborate plan, a plan B. Another is exaggerated optimism, expecting a mood boost if something is to happen or not happen, anticipating things to be harder, easier, basically any attempt to bend reality to suit one's expectation thereof. Kindle psychic unease when things go awry. Is that going against the flow, a wish to constrain outcomes, that which causes psychic imbalance? It is often a question of exaggerated expectations, of underestimation of difficulties, of unjustified optimism, or of a negative attitude. One could compile quite a list of the false presuppositions which give rise to the earliest conscious problems. There are other triggers of tension aside presuppositions. The unsatisfied sexual impulse is a major one, for instance. Not being exposed to the opposite sexual energy for a period can bring about frustration to some. Often it's not an explicit phenomenon, a psychic imbalance that hinders your day-to-day accumulating incrementally under the radar. This sort of tension comes about from the inside out, meaning invisible symptoms operating, accumulating without your knowing. The second tension creator of the same internal nature is a feeling of inferiority, of defenselessness, which stems from a hypersensitive character. Maybe the child has never seen rejection growing up, was cajoled all throughout, ended up in adulthood with a heightened dependence, which says weakness. These inner difficulties may exist even when adaptation to the outer world has been achieved without apparent effort. Jung noted how one is able to adapt to the needs of adulthood quite easily, eliminating both internal and external troubles, but on condition that he's had to go through prior hardening experiences in childhood. It even seems as if young people who have had to struggle hard for their existence are spared inner problems, while those for whom adaptation for some reason or other is made easy run into problems of sex or conflicts growing from the sense of inferiority. The latter are mere examples from an infancy. Although different, each of these types of problems share a common cause. What is it? A subconscious cry back to childhood, a time where we depend on someone else and thus have no fear of making decisions, hence mistakes. The person, in spite of being an adult, is subconsciously rejecting the burden of independence. This unconscious rejection manifests as behavioral symptoms, the ones we've just discussed, like the incessant use of assumptions, expectations, withdrawal from fearful situations and opportunities, a feeling of being defenseless in the world, dependence on others. All these symptoms signal a form of escapism from the unbearable duties of adulthood. Why? Often because we go unprepared that this happens. We turn out to have aged well only physiologically. Our level of consciousness, however, is stuck in that of a child, in that egoistic phase in which we once were the center of the play, had absolute control and commanded parents with a fingertip. Something in us wishes to remain a child, to be unconscious, or at most conscious only of the ego, to reject everything foreign or at least subject it to our will, to do nothing, or in any case indulge our craving for pleasure or power. This, again, is the root of all psychic imbalance according to Jung, and it often goes unnoticed for it is a subtle assumption which the person carries on while he stumbles into adulthood. I'd like to thank everyone who's been following this series so far. I hope you've learned a lot. We have yet 2 videos to conclude, coming up soon. Stay tuned.